Hey everybody, I'm Joe, and I'm so glad that you're here as we kick off a new series together. It's called Stuck Together, and it's all about the one thing that we all have in common: family. When we say family, we mean the people that we live with and go through life with. They're the people that we're stuck together with. And just because we have a family, it doesn't mean each family looks the same. For some of us, family means one parent and a few siblings. Or it means two parents and no siblings. It may mean a mother, a stepmother, a father, a stepfather, or 4 half-brothers and sisters. Or it may mean 3 dogs, your dad, his girlfriend who lives with you, and her daughter. Maybe your family is the one that adopted you, or your aunt and uncle who you live with now, or maybe it's the foster family you live with, or the friends around you who feel even more like family. Each of us has a different experience with family. Some of us might love being with our family. For others of us, family is a difficult thing to navigate.
It can be complicated.
No matter what it looks like, we all come from or are part of a family of some kind, whether it's the family that we're born with or the family that we choose. So let me introduce you to mine. I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and there's my mom and my dad, Vivian and Leroy, and my siblings. There's Catherine, she's the oldest. Then there's Leah. Chris was number 3, and then there's Martell, Edie, and finally, me. Here's the thing about my family. They know what bothers me. They embarrass me. They're always cheering the loudest in the stands for me. They get on my nerves. They're some of the strangest people I know. But guess what? I love them. And I love being stuck with them. I know not everyone feels that way about their fam, and I get it. Family can be stressful, unpredictable, and even exhausting at times. Fighting, health issues, divorce, lying, rules we don't understand, and yelling. All these things and more can make family a lot more complicated. And then add faith to that list. For some of us, faith is a big part of our lives, and it's a big part of our family members' lives as well. And that's great. But for others of us, our faith can make things even more complicated in our families. Maybe you know this to be true because your faith is really important to you. And that gets complicated because you have a parent or a step-parent or a sibling who maybe doesn't see faith the same way that you do. They believe something totally different than you, and that feels strange. It's like you're on 2 totally different pages. Or maybe for you, faith impacts your family in a different way. In your home, it's your mom or your foster parent or your grandparent who really is into this Jesus stuff. And if you're honest, you're not that interested. You're not even sure what you think about God or faith and all that comes with it. But your family wants you to be sure. And that can definitely make faith a difficult thing to navigate in your family. Or maybe you aren't really sure about how your faith mixes with your family. Maybe you've been into church because your parent, your guardian, or your older sibling is into church. But as you've gotten older, you're starting to wonder if you really believe like they believe. You're not even sure how to talk to your people about the doubts and the questions that you have when it comes to your faith. See what I mean? In one way or another, faith can create tensions in our families. For me, that's confusing because all I ever remember hearing about faith is that it makes things better. But with family, that doesn't always feel like it's true. I think that leaves us with a question. If faith can create tension in our families, how do we make sure our faith is actually helping to make our families better? The good news is I have an answer to that question. Well, it's not really my answer. It's actually something Jesus said when he was alive on earth. There's this guy named John, one of Jesus' closest friends and followers, who wrote it down so that we could learn from it today. Now, before I actually tell you exactly what Jesus said, let me explain a little bit about what was happening when he said it. Now, right before Jesus was about to be arrested and eventually killed on a cross, he called his closest friends and followers together for a meal. Even though Jesus had warned them that he was going to die, these guys, they didn't really understand. It didn't click with them that this was going to be the last meal that they were going to share together as a family. And in their minds, they were just doing what they always did together, sitting around a table, sharing a meal, and talking about life. Because Jesus knew the way things were going to go, he wanted to share a few important words with his closest people. And at that dinner, he dropped this important truth to his fam. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. That word disciples simply means someone who follows Jesus. According to Jesus' words here, the best way for people to know that we follow and believe in him is to love other people. Remember, when he said this, Jesus knew that difficult times were coming for his friends and his family. They would be scared, treated terribly for believing Jesus was who he said he was, and even tempted to turn their backs on him. Yet, when it all came down to it, Jesus took this opportunity to remind them that loving each other was the most important thing that they could do. It's the way that they could show the world that they believed in him. It's how their faith would make an impact even after Jesus wasn't with them on earth anymore. And you know what? I think the same can be true for our families. If we want faith to actually impact our families for good, then we have to start here. We have to start with love, because loving your family can make an impact. Of course, this isn't always easy. Loving your family the way Jesus asks us to can be really difficult. In fact, some days it may be the hardest thing that you're called to do. The good news is, I think Jesus knew that. I think that's why he didn't leave us to figure out how to do this on our own. You see, a few years after Jesus' death and resurrection, there was this guy named Paul who wrote a bunch of letters to the churches to instruct and encourage them in their faith. And honestly, a lot of these people who received these letters were a lot like us. They were just trying to figure out how this whole faith thing impacted their lives in real and everyday ways. In one of his letters, Paul explained it to them. He wrote this: love is patient. Love is kind. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It's not proud. It does not dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. You see, when Jesus calls us to love one another, this is what he's asking us to do: to be patient and kind and humble and respectful and selfless, to not get upset easily or hold grudges, but to protect, trust, hope, stick together with the people around us, to love our family the way that Jesus calls us to love them, because loving your family can make an impact. And love is where it starts. No matter what you believe or what your family believes when it comes to faith, this is something that we can all do. We can all try to love the people in our families a little more. If you're doing it because you believe in Jesus, that's great. But if you're not sure that you believe in Jesus, trying to love your family can still make things better. For some of you, I know that loving your family may look different because of circumstances that are kind of out of your control. And if you've been hurt by a family member or your family situation is difficult to navigate, I also want you to know that there are a lot of ways to love your family like Jesus. Sometimes loving your family doesn't mean being connected to those family members that have hurt you. You can still love your family like Jesus calls us to by doing things like showing patience and respect and using kind words, even from a distance. So this week, here's what I want you to consider. What would it look like to love your family? Think about the people who make up your family. Your parents, your siblings, your guardians, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your friends, your foster family, your friends' parents, and ask yourself what it might look like to show love to the people you consider to be your family. And then start by doing just one thing. Do just one thing to show love to your family this week. You can even start with the stuff that Paul listed in this letter. Focus on just one thing and see if demonstrating your love for your family in that way makes an impact. And honestly, I think it will, because love is what changes people. Love is what faith is all about. Even if it doesn't change them, it can change you. And that's important too. So we're going to continue this conversation in small groups. And we created small groups to be sort of like your family at church. It's a safe space for you to open up, to ask questions and share some of what you're going through with people who love you and want what's best for your life. So, as you head to small groups, I want to ask you this one question. What's one way you can show your family love this week?